God knows what Mark is.
Less camera, the better.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Dudley, Massachusetts Economic Development Committee. Today is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. It is now 10:30 a.m. We're going to start the meeting with our call to order and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. And I will note that today our meeting is being recorded. First item up on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for February 20th, 2024. Kelsey Buccelli, our vice chair, who's agreed to take the minutes, is not here today, so we will we'll hold that until the next meeting. So we can actually start off with our friends from the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. Discussion with Jane and Victoria on the Gateway Plan. First off, and then I'd also like to, welcome back Kerry and Joe. Joe, have you been here before, right?
I have once before.
I was going to say, you look familiar. Well, welcome.
He's been at the police station downstairs.
The police station. That's where it was in booking, central booking. But anyways, thank you all so much. We can't tell you how much, on behalf of the committee, how much we appreciate all the hard work. And I'm very excited to hear about the survey and everything else. So I'll just turn it over, Jane and Victoria, to you. First item on the agenda.
I will let Victoria lead. She's done the presentation on both the survey results and
some of the
gateway ideas.
Okay.
So, and then we might get into a little bit of discussion about the facade improvement design guidelines.
Perfect. So, like Jane mentioned, our agenda today will be the survey results, the gateway design, and the facade. So, some of the survey insights that we have is that we launched this survey back in February 10th, 2024. As of right now, it's still open to the public. And as of March 15th, we saw 223 total responses for the survey. So this honestly exceeded our expectations. We're really happy that we got so much responses and able to really get a clear insight of what the community might be looking for with this type of project. Some quick findings with the survey is that 96 of the survey respondents were current residents of Dudley. 50% does not agree on any collaborative or shared working spaces. Along with that, 81% does not even recall any businesses or activities that used to be in Dudley or that should still be in Dudley. The age bracket, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, was 56% of them were 35 to 54 that took the survey. Along with that, 51% has lived in Dudley for 20 plus years. And lastly, the main location that we're all in agreement is the Gateway area, West Main Street, near the Dudley-Webster town line, should be considered for economic development. We're seeing with 56 as an agreement towards that. One of the questions that we looked at and we asked is, when they go to Dudley, the Gateway, what are they going there for? At our top of the bracket is 67% go to Dudley for the pharmacy. Right after that, at 56 or 58% is for coffee and donuts. With some of the comments left along with that, we see Dollar General. They live in the area, so they're just here. They say they pass by. The dog groomers. They even meet up for a running club, or even going to the dispensary. So this is all different aspects that we can look on to expand and see exactly where we can even move forward as an economic development project. Another question that was asked is, when they think of the Dudley Gateway, what type of businesses or amenities they would like to see. The top one at 59% was sit-down restaurants. Then we have green spaces, and the last one was small shops and boutiques. There was even some suggestions they put in there, like cheese shops, bakeries, something tasteful, family entertainment, farmers market. We got pedestrian-friendly spaces, even a theater, so we're marketing more towards the arts or cultural. And then some people even suggest nothing, that it's fine as it is. That's always something that we can always look at as well, because that's a point of view. And also a brewery would be cool. So we asked about the strengths and challenges. of Dudley. So some of the strengths is its people, the high school rank, the school system, again, nothing, or the rural character, not congested. Now some of the, and then even as you can see that the votes, there were 65% that did agree that the small town character is a strength as well. But going on to the challenges, the most one is the funding at 74%. And some of the comments left with that was sidewalks. People say they need parks and benches, that the projects are taking too long. Hill Street is being closed. And then the lack of road infrastructure. With this, if we do decide to increase any residential or commercial, this is also gonna follow up with maybe more concern on that. One of the main things that we saw and we asked as an open-ended question, I kind of condensed it to see comments that were redundant and repeated over and over again, was what type of communities do they think of that they like to go to? The main one was Putnam, Connecticut. I added a link into here, and in this link we could see on their website, because I was curious, I haven't been there personally, but I looked on their link and I can see why people like there. They have hiking trails, they have unique local shops, their sidewalks are wide enough, and a lot of the comments reference this area. So I think this might be, as we move along with this project, a good area to look back in and maybe even model a little bit after. Another question that we asked about is about what these communities appeal to you. And with that, 76% is that walkable downtown area. And then right after that with 65% is quaint shops and boutiques. Again, I think that's what Paynton, Connecticut really identifies with. So people left in the comments as diverse restaurants and bars, access to new housing, stores, restaurants, forward thinking, local government, a place where there's a lot of woods and trails, variety of things to do. And again, the walkability is their most single factor that they really look at, along with having parking available. At the end of our survey, we did open it up to let them add any additional comments or anything like that. And here they talked about solution for traffic. They talked about providing more, that Dudley needs to provide more restaurants, activities, and grocery stores, especially if they are planning to adopt or incorporate more apartments and people who are planning to move over here. This resident said that there is no incentive to open businesses or build a home or create a better space. So that's, the restrictions here are really too hard upon, and that needs to be changed. Another resident said that there needs to be reasons for businesses to want to come and grow here in Dudley. Moving forward, there's even some suggestions for a functioning playground. There was other suggestions that talked about making Dudley a much more desirable place, as in long-term, not just short-term goals, but we need to be looking at it long-term. Again, emphasizing the character of the small town charm. And then there was even smaller comments where it talks about fixing that bridge that we are highlighting, the main area that we're looking at. Moving forward, was there any questions about the survey, comments before we move on to the signage or features?
Anybody on the committee have any questions?
No?
I mean, I find it interesting, just the number of responses.
So do I.
So what do we attribute that to? Why are people taking the time to fill out the survey?
I believe you had mentioned you saw the big uptick once it was posted on Facebook. Was that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I think we've done a good
social
job.
media.
Outreach,
Yeah.
but why are people still
Yeah,
filling
but
it out?
Still, even if they have access to it, right, why are they taking the time to do it?
Yeah.
They must care, right?
Mhm.
True. I mean,
Or be interested in seeing change.
Yeah, there was comments where people have mentioned, they're like, I'm actually really excited that this type of project is coming about. It makes me excited for the growth of Dudley. And I think it's something that people want because they want to be proud of their town. They want something to represent who they are.
Yeah.
I thought that, to Mark's point, yeah, just because, I mean, they actually took the time, to go through this. Some of the responses more colorful than others, but just even little things that stuck out to me, especially like I always wondered, like, okay, where does everybody who lives in Dudley, where do they work? And we have the percentage right down here. 16% live in Dudley. A bigger percent lives, or works rather, in Worcester County. But I thought it was also interested that like a little over 21%, they don't work at all and they're retired.
Yeah.
So there's that decent sized chunk that were responding, but that are actually retired. Are they doing any type of work, or are they just? Joanne, did you have?
Yeah, I think you got a good response, because I think people like they're community oriented, and a lot of people since COVID, you start where you live, and if there are things that you can do, think about how many people have never been in town, they grew up, have never been to Sturbridge Village. In my age bracket, my husband's never been to Sturbridge Village, he's a townie.
Right.
So I think COVID has made us look at things that are right under our nose, and we've been more appreciative. And we're looking for some activities we can do. I think that that's a big part of it.
I
And I
agree.
think that's where the support is at.
Also, over 50% are people who have been in town for 20 years or more. And when was the last time someone said to them, what do you want to have in Dudley, right? So,
Very true. Very true.
they're like, wow,
Yeah.
someone's asking me what I want to have in Dudley?
Right.
I've been here for 20 years.
So
So-
to make sure that people remain engaged, what's our next step? So how long are we gonna keep the survey open? And then how do we communicate the results and show that we're going to, take this information and do something
And
with
act
it?
on it, act on
And
it.
act on it. Like, how do we have any ideas on the next steps?
I had asked Bill about whether we were gonna keep the survey open. The initial advertisement said March 15th. We decided to leave it to this body to decide whether you wanna keep it open longer to see what happens, or close it. As far as letting the public know about it, I don't know if you want us to prepare something that is appropriate to go on Facebook, or other town website, or if you just want it to be published in the final document. So I'll leave it up
Yes.
to you for discussion.
What does the committee think?
We could try it a little bit longer. I think on Facebook, each time you post it, I don't know if you get a response each time it's posted.
We do.
Okay, well then, we could, maybe for the next month, and that should be it. It's like a reminder. I mean, the first one that came out, I liked it and totally forgot about it. And I thought, well, if I totally forgot, maybe others did too. And so I posted, and my neighbor, she runs the Dudley Resident Forum, and so she really posted quite a bit. But things get buried, you post it, and it gets buried in no time. Anyways,
So I'll be the first to
And-
admit that I never expected that we would have this sort of response, but since we do, my vote is to keep it going. Let's try to get as much information as we can since people are responding.
yeah.
And Jane, so when is your final report going to be completed?
I was gonna talk to Bill about that, either the end of May or possibly into June a little bit.
June 30th contract deadline.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so just, we want to keep an eye on what the
Yeah, of
right
course.
date is to close it and for
Okay.
you to
Okay.
finish your report. But, yeah, that seems to make sense, is that it will inform, and then we can make a decision after that as to how do we communicate the results of the whole project.
Yeah, they were gonna be included as an appendix to the main report.
Okay.
I see the survey as hopeful. People see a lot of the problems there, but they also have a lot of suggestions
Right.
for what we can do about it. And I think, we can take those challenges and spin it around and say, we have opportunities here to really improve this area. And, they've given us a lot of ideas to think about. So I think we've got good support to continue this process and develop a plan. And then we can, obviously have some outreach when the plan is done to get further input. But I think, I'm seeing, really positive feedback here that we can use to fashion a very viable plan.
Two. Joan?
I think it should be interesting to people who have businesses. I mean, if you had a restaurant, a small restaurant, you would see there's a need here. Right now in Dudley, you want to go to lunch, you either go to a pizza parlor or you don't, because any of the restaurants we do have aren't open until later in the day. People like to socialize. That's why so many of us at the golf course are related that the college has opened up the restaurant again. You can go have a little lunch with your friends, have a place to chat. I think this shows there's a need for that people do like to gather and be able to do that right in the community, not have to go outside to go somewhere else.
Right.
And I would think if you're looking to put a business in, that's kind of positive for you to have this kind of information, to know where people would be interested in going.
I
think it's
agree.
great.
I agree, and I also, I mean, they had mentioned, as you pointed out, the town of Putnam in Connecticut, right down the road. I mean, they had a transformation themselves. I mean, the area which is now, you know, restaurants, all sorts of, you know, shops and things like that. There was a period not too long ago, because it's been the time that I've lived in the area, where it wasn't that way. It was, you know, just old antique stores, and it wasn't that. In the town of Putnam there, I know they have a very active, you know, business association and all sorts of things that, you know, that go on there, but it did take them time. And I think that, you know, to Bill's point, that, you know, the fact that they're not just complaining, that the responses were just, and there were some, but that's you know, you're gonna get that, but they actually had suggestions, like, you know, and a lot of them, whether it was mirroring different towns, saying, hey, yeah, listen, there is no town square like Oxford where they have all sorts of events. There's no downtown. Well, exactly, these are the things that we're talking about, you know, and to give us the walkability factor, the factor like Joanne said about restaurants. You know, where do people go? We go to Putnam, or we go to Worcester, we go somewhere else. Somebody had mentioned in the survey that they go to Boston a lot. I mean, I get it. It's only an hour away, and I'd like to go eat in Back Bay myself. But it's just, you know. But if you know, why is that? You know, and I know that it's tough. I have a lot of customers at where I work at the bank. You know, food, anything related to restaurants and things, all business owners. It's tough now. You know, it's tough to find help. It's tough to find, you know, it's tough to, you know, to make a profit. But it's just, can the towns make it, you know, easier for them to want to say, hey, I do want to open up shop here and things of that nature. And the big also piece I did notice the whole the walkability, you know, factor. That being like, people like to be able to also, but to walk around, you got to have places to park. They did make mention of all the new apartments that hopefully, with the, you know, whenever Stevens Mills project gets, you know, underway, and then as Bill had made reference to our last meeting, there's another project, you know, down Schofield Ave at some point in the distant future. Not all this stuff's going to happen overnight, but if we can show that, okay, and report how many people, I think it's important to let, you know, at the end, people know, hey, we had this many responses. I mean, you know, it's you know, that's a significant piece of information to let other people know that they're engaged, and then also show, even if it's a little thing, that we listened, this is what the feedback was, and we are, to Robin's point, we're taking action. Our first project is we're going to do this. So when they drive by and they say, oh wow, you know, that they sent us out a survey. We took time out of our day to answer it in detail. They took the feedback, and now they're acting. So I think that's what it's all about. But again, it's not going to happen. I think maybe Joanne, you might have mentioned, it's not going to happen overnight. This is going to be little steps, and not try to, you know, have the walk-off grand slam home run. You know, we'll do a bunch of singles until we get there. You know, but that's my get off my soapbox for a second. But thank you. Anybody else? Any feedback? Okay.
All right, perfect. So now we're going to be switching gears from reviewing our survey to more on the action side of how we want this gateway features and signage. So we're going to be reviewing different towns that are, some are here in Massachusetts, others in other states, or even outside of the country. But this is so we can get a good idea of where we want to go with the type of signage and gateway feature that we're thinking. So starting off is Worcester, Massachusetts. They have very art type of features, signage, but at the same time, it's still like very eye attracting to someone who's walking by. Next we have Shrewsbury. They got wayfinding signage that's, again, very simple but very direct. The wording is nice and pretty and big. There's some color to it. It just adds some character into the neighborhood. Again, another directional signs back in Maynard, Massachusetts. Very simple, but again, it's all flows with each other, with the arrows, the color, even if they're at different locations. Leicester, Massachusetts. As you can see here, there's a theme with their signage is with wood carving signs, and then there's also some owls and the moon, which is very significant. This is with their public library. This is something we can always look into as well. Maybe there's a certain craftsman who's in Dudley that can help out with our signage as well. Ashland, Massachusetts, they have this blue signage right here with some greenery in the bottom, vegetation, nice simple little stone wall. With Holliston, Massachusetts, again, you see the theme throughout every single sign, even though it's for different stuff, community farm to cable access television, they are all the same type of theme, so you know this is the town. This is, no matter where you're at, you know what town you're in. In Hudson, they have these two. Again, you're seeing the picture of a famous building there, historical building, and then we also again have this nice pretty wood. It's very simple, but at the same time it's very eye-catching with the lettering, with the simple logo on there, and then again vegetation on the bottom. With Guthrie, Oklahoma, these are our lamps. We talked about signage on lamps. I think these are very classic, very eye-catching as well. Brings a little historic factor to it. We've mentioned how Webster kind of did a little bit of this, so this is always a good idea. More simple. And then Inglewood, Texas. Theirs follows through with who their character is, which is naturally resourceful. And with the bird, and very simple again, but it represents their town. Going into Washington Village in Sunderland, England, this is a very classic kind of medieval and represents again the culture of their town with the nice little mural of some of the homes, trees, very just very cute. I think it leaves an imprint. And then this one we wanted to bring up because they actually used old artifacts that really was significant with their town, with their gateway feature. So that bell was actually from their old mill, and they represented that and put that in. So that's something, if we want to work with the people who are redoing the mill complex here, maybe there's something they don't want, but we can incorporate with our signage as well. And it could be some bricks or something like that, and we can bring together the two.
I remember at the last meeting, Joanne mentioned that there are probably people in town who have old artifacts that they'd be willing to donate to
Right.
use as part of this feature. And I do need to make a correction on the bell. It's actually the John Brown bell.
John Brown.
That was captured from Harper's Ferry and is thought to be the second most important bell in the country after the Liberty Bell.
Really? And that's in Marlborough.
Marlboro.
Wow. I mean, just looking at that, I mean, it's just that's a wonderful, beautiful sign. I think on a number of those pictures, you know, and I noticed on the survey, you know, we've all talked about this. You come over, you don't know like you're in Dudley. Most people don't recognize that they're in Dudley, but to have something that's nicely landscaped, something like that, and that having a picture of a significant historical building, whether it was a mill or whether it was, you know, something like that. And I love the idea personally of if there's a way to, you know, contact the developers for the Stevens Mill to see if there's something to do, just so it's not just, hey, we just went out and bought a sign, that there is some historical significance. Because as much as, you know, we are, as far as I've been made aware, that Dudley has historically been an agricultural town, but it's not just agriculture. It's a mill town. I mean, that Stevens Mill and other mills in this area. Think of the, you know, the industry. We've got a big, chemical company, Webco Chemical. We've got other companies. It's not just agriculture. You know. So there is a big historical component to the mills. You know, so I don't know if anybody else on the committee has any thoughts about the signage, but I thought those were great examples.
I do too, particularly Holliston, and the consistent, I mean, most of them have consistent throughout. And then it just made me think about the town hall and police headquarters sign that we have out front. You know, that's a very nicely done sign that could begin to become you know, the standard for which we, you know, start to sign other things in town. It's very similar, honestly, to many of these, the stone, and then, you know, a little bit of a, I think it's like hand carved out front here. I just brought it up on my laptop. You know, and then to add to that some historical feature for the gateway area would be nice. And I think we talked about maybe inviting someone from the historical committee to come to give us some kind of insight into, you know, what that might be.
I think that's a great idea. They'd probably have a little bit better idea as to
Right.
what might be a really nice touch.
Right. So, you know, we've got something here with the town hall sign, you know, maybe we should keep that consistent.
The only thing, I think the town hall sign is very modern, you know, with the electronic part. I think the flavor of these signs with the colors and everything that's in them as you're coming into the community, your entrance in, I think that's a flavor a lot of people would love to see kept on doing that. And again, I think you do have some places, the college being one, the mill being another, that people don't realize. I think that was like the first linen mill in the country. It's got a big history to it if you really look at it. I think it's right under our nose that we gotta pay attention, but these all say, they're warm. They're not just informational, they're saying you've come into the community. I think they're great, the examples are beautiful.
The signs all seem to have some sort of iconic image in them, some part of the community that, you know, is representative of the heritage. So I'm thinking, you know, the two that come to mind in Dudley are the Stevens Mill and the Black Tavern.
Yeah.
Would be,
Yeah.
you know, sort of the central image of the sign with, you know, a welcome message for people. And in the Gateway area, you know, maybe the Stevens Mill would be the iconic image because that's integral to that area. But the Black Tavern also sort of represents more of the agricultural and
Definitely.
you know, pre-revolutionary type of heritage of the town.
Yeah, oh, great point.
Joanne, I just wanted to clarify, I was thinking of the sign out front that has the stone, not the electronic one.
Yep.
There's the two.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
And in reading about the history of the area and how there was this large vein of granite from Dudley going up towards Oxford, and it was used to build the mill, I was thinking, how are we gonna implement some kind of granite with the sign to represent that? And I loved seeing that so many of these signs do have the granite posts.
Mm.
Really nice.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and I think with the historical piece, but also, and maybe it doesn't have to be at the gateway, but, you know, there were I remember reading in the survey several responses having to do with, hey, you know, we're a college town, you know, and it's, you know, and there were a couple of people that had made mention of, you know, usually you have college towns that have businesses around the college. It's really, you know, there's more activity and things of that nature. Maybe something in regards to signage too. And I don't know if that would be, you know, something that can be incorporated. And I know Nichols would probably want to have their own branded kind of, you know, sign too, but there's got to be a good way to marry the two. Do you know what I mean? To be able to just show, okay, hey, you're heading into, you know, welcome to Dudley, but also, hey, guess what? This is also where Nichols College is. Because there are, I mean, there's, you know, that's a very important piece of it, you know. But anybody else on the committee have anything to add? Okay.
Perfect, so I'm gonna pass it over to Jane now.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly touch on facade and improvement and design guidelines. And I don't know how detailed this committee would like to see those design guidelines. Some of the other communities we worked with had more historic buildings. And yes, the mill's historic, but, you know, Dollar General, the gas station, some of those buildings are not historic. So I don't think we want to make it so specific that it has to meet like historic guidelines or anything. But I don't know if you want to get into materials. I know that Carrie worked with a couple of our communities on a facade improvement program for them, and it also included looking into where to get funding to do these types of loans for facade improvements and what the criteria is for it. But I was just working on that and just trying to get some feedback from you on what you envisioned for that.
I mean, in facade improvement, you're talking about like any type of monies that can be used by local property owners, business owners to improve the facades of
Yes.
their properties. Okay.
Paint, materials, signage.
Okay. I mean, because, besides the, like the corporate, like, Dollar General, the Walgreens, which I'm sure they have their own, specifications.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I would love to learn more about that, and how can we effectively communicate that out to folks? Because if there's money, if it's grant money, or are we or is it loans?
Loans.
But like, what are the parameters of those loans? Like, what are the terms and all those other things? But I mean, I'd kind of ask the committee, your thoughts in regards to it. If you're a small business owner, I mean, I know rates and all sorts of other things have been preventing a lot of people, and not just that, I mean, just, that they would love to maybe improve their building. Do you think that this is something that we should move forward and get more information on?
Well, one of the things I think you have to involve, we probably would want to have a building inspector at a meeting, because signage in Dudley has been an issue over the years. At one time, all of West Main Street, they were trying to make it comply with zoning, and we couldn't. You could not do that, the signage that was there. So I think it'd be smart to involve a building inspector to let us know if there's any other things, ratio of how much square footage it covers, things that come into play, that maybe we should have their input along the way also on doing that, because that whole area would come into play.
Or if nothing else, just look at the signage bylaw, because there's obviously some restrictions in there and guidelines as far as how big the sign can be and other elements.
When it comes to facades as well, I mean, we're talking about, folks that have actual, like, storefronts, things of that nature. I mean, I know there are a lot of properties up along West Main Street that are, multifamily homes, or more on the residential side. That, my guess, would not qualify for that. Would that be correct? It would just be businesses.
Has that been your experience, or?
No, they would qualify, as long as the property owner is involved.
Cool.
Okay, I mean, because that's part of it, I mean, because we want to make it, all right. I'd like to get some more information
Okay.
on that. Bill, do you have any
I
thoughts on
was
it?
just thinking whether, I mean, it's nice to have the guidelines, but how are they implemented? And I'm wondering if there might be a need for some sort of design review process here in town, where not just the site plan is reviewed, but the actual physical appearance would be reviewed as well. It could be a function of the planning board to add that to their site plan checklist, or create a design review committee, of local business people and architects and that sort of thing that could weigh in on a proposed development. It's maybe a big ask. In Dudley, a lot of towns have done it. I don't know whether it would fly in Dudley here, but it's a thought. Have you seen that work effectively anywhere, Jane?
Not in this state. I'm sure I can find some though.
It's state funding? Is that where?
So historically, it's been a challenge to find sign and facade improvement program funding. One way to fund it is through the Community Development Block Grant Program, which Dudley is eligible for. The other way that we've been able to fund it in some of our other communities is through the Regional Economic Development Organization funding, which is strictly grant funding, which is nice. The CDBG program makes it I think typically a 75-25 split, where the program pays 75% and the property owner pays 25%. And then with the redo funding, it was a 50-50. It began as a 50-50 split between the program and the property owner. So those are the two ways that I have seen it work in Massachusetts. So it would be up to the committee to decide which way to move forward, and could be worth talking with Andrew in our office, who runs the CDBG program. He does a lot of work here in Dudley.
Yeah, maybe we could get some more information from Andrew. I'd be very interested, just because as a property owner, if they did get approved for it, what are the, guidelines or any types of conditions, what would prevent somebody from getting funding? And then just putting the property on the market because they were able to improve it? Are they actually operating a business, or are they just, I'm very interested to hear a little bit more about it, and also to hear why it really hasn't been working in Massachusetts, or it doesn't seem like there's been much success. What
We
does
do
the
have
commi-
a boilerplate, or like a template for a program if it's something that the committee's interested in.
I'll go back to the committee. Do you think we should take a look at something like that?
Why not?
Okay, that'd be great.
Great. Very good. Thank you,
Oh,
Karen.
thank you. Crisis averted.
Crisis averted.
And that's what we were going to share today, and we'll hand it over to Carrie and Joe.
Awesome.
I assume they're next.
They are next on the agenda. Welcome, Carrie and Joe.
Yeah.
Yes, just full disclaimer, there's not enough packets for all of you. I was printing them out and I was
That's
like,
all
oh man, I don't want to waste any more
Yeah,
paper,
thank you. It's been a
so
while.
don't mind sharing.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna let Joe lead the presentation since he's done a majority of the work. We've had a chance to come back to Dudley and actually visit all of the sites, grab some photos and take a walk through the sites that have been dedicated for this project.
Yep, yeah, so as a complement to the gateway work that Jane and Victoria are doing, we also have we call it site-specific economic development plan. I've heard some other people refer to it as like the industrial area study, but it's looking at specific properties within Dudley that I think the board and ourselves identified as opportunities for economic development. So we're just gonna look at some economic data and trends for Dudley and the region, some previous studies on Dudley, and then the focus areas, that's properties that we're looking at. And just to kind of preface the conversation, rather than us talking at you the whole time, it'd be good to get your insight on the different economic data I'll show you all and the individual properties. So I don't know if we want to stop every slide or every couple slides, but feel free to chime in whenever you'd like.
Thank you.
Good to get your thoughts on everything. All right, so now we have the economic data and trends. So these first couple of slides are just focused on grounding the importance of the study and the need for Dudley to see more economic development and attract more industrial and commercial businesses. So this is just a breakdown of Dudley's tax levy. And as you can see, the residential levy comprises 93% of the total levy. And so that puts Dudley in like the top third in terms of highest residential / open space levy share. Commercial, industrial, and personal property only account for about 7%. So as you can see, there's a lot of room for growing that portion of the levy share, especially because, as we noted earlier, there are many residents who might be retired, who might have limited fixed incomes. It's not always easy to raise that residential property tax rate. So by bringing more businesses to the community, we can try to give the town more revenue. And then this is also just expanding on that, some tax indicators. So if you look from left to right, equalized value is a indication of the full fair cash value of property in Dudley. So that's like in the 9th percentile compared to other municipalities in the state. And so that in of itself might be an indicator that there's properties in Dudley that might be vacant or underutilized that could possibly have their value increased. And then also we have the residential property rates. So with a lower EQV and then lower property rates, you might be able to see how that could lead to some revenue challenges. So bringing more businesses to the community will help with that. All right, and then this slide goes over the businesses in Dudley by the NAICS codes. As you can see, other services is the top category, but some of the others that are most present in Dudley are retail, construction, public admin is probably just accounting for town departments. And you can see the list goes down. We don't have to touch on all of them, but it's just for you all to look at. And then employment, so manufacturing, most jobs in Dudley are in manufacturing, followed by retail and education. list. And then this is just a look at the jobs over 10 years, so you can kind of see how they've changed over time. If you notice, like probably the area that's seen the most growth is healthcare and social assistance, whereas most of the other categories have seen decreases other than other services. And then this is just comparing the jobs in Dudley to the jobs that Dudley residents hold. As you can see, Dudley residents are mostly in services and professional jobs, whereas, as we saw on the slide before, most jobs in Dudley are manufacturing. The second largest industry in Dudley is manufacturing, but that services and those professional jobs is maybe a divergence between the jobs that Dudley residents hold and the jobs that people who work in Dudley are doing. Just something to think about when we think of what businesses to attract to the community in terms of what we're looking for, businesses that might give jobs to local residents and that sort. And then next, this is a breakdown of household consumer spending in Dudley. So just a chart that can allow us to think about what opportunities there might be in the community from what you've all seen and know in terms of how where people spend money might align with opportunities in the community. I know we had talked about obviously restaurants being an opportunity, and possibly entertainment and recreation could be another one. And then these are just some growth industries in central Massachusetts. So this is from the Massachusetts Department of Economic Research. So again, just to kind of think about how regional trends might align with opportunities at the local level. So the industry that's projected to see the most growth is accommodation, including hotels and motels. Some of these categories do overlap a little, but others are, social assistance, healthcare, manufacturing. Some of the industries that Dudley has a lot of jobs in or has seen growth in, like healthcare. And then just to quickly review some of the previous studies. Well, actually, first, did anyone have any comments or thoughts about the economic data?
Yeah, it's very detailed. I don't have any questions. Anybody on the committee?
All right, and then just to look briefly at some previous studies. So the 2018 Economic Development Plan identified some industries that could support Dudley's economic development vision and goals. For example, STEM industries, selected manufacturing, professional services, communications, agriculture. If you go back to the NAICS slide, agriculture, I think there's 1 or 0 commercial businesses devoted to agriculture in Dudley. As we mentioned, Dudley's known historically for agriculture. That's definitely an area for growth. And I think that discrepancy might account for people who farm, but versus farming for commercial, as a commercial endeavor. And then it also acknowledged that the town and local businesses could benefit from some increased communication and cooperation concerning marketing, education and workforce development, and then the permitting and license process. And then in 2020, CMRPC did a Webster-Dudley corridor study to look at the building use and zoning makeup of the Gateway area and the West Main Street corridor. Some of the recommendations were zoning amendments to encourage more cohesive development between Dudley and Webster, in order to make it more seamless. People who might be driving west from Webster, in order that them to encourage to continue on into Dudley and frequent businesses in Dudley. And then there also recommended some amendments regarding more compact development in the Gateway area, specifically to encourage that kind of fluidity with Webster, and then some more mixed-use development, coupling where people live with businesses. Joe, I sort of have a question. I'm looking at the previous slide, the economic development plan.
Sure.
Unidentified industries.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing a lot of advanced kind of companies here as sort of the goal of the plan. And then, previous slides, you talked a lot about the workforce. And I know this maybe, you'd have to think about this question some more, but does the employment base in Dudley support the kind of economic development goals that we're striving for? I always thought Dudley was kind of a blue-collar type town, but this data seems to indicate that it's becoming more of a professional and management-oriented kind of town. So, I'm not sure I know the question I want to ask, but can we promote the kind of businesses we want, given the workforce that we have?
Yeah, no, I don't know if I have a full answer to that right now, but I think there's definitely room for growth there. I don't know if you wanted to expand, but bioscience is big in central Massachusetts, and there is thinking that there's room for opportunity to move out from places like Worcester into more suburban and rural communities where there's more land opportunities. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Well, I was thinking like in 2018, this project was done before I started at CMRPC, or it was just finishing when I started. And looking at it, you would think that somebody had high hopes for Dudley in this area.
Mhm.
But over the past 6 years, we've seen this evolve in a lot of our communities. So I do think it's possible to match the residents with positions like this.
Mhm.
We have a question.
I would think, and maybe Mark would be able to chip in too, but what we've seen for people who are buying housing in Dudley, we've seen a migration of people out of the city in more intense areas of population that are not necessarily professional people, that we have been an affordability level of housing, that I think maybe our influx of people who are eligible to be in this kind of a workforce, wouldn't you think we've seen a bigger mixture, not just professional people coming in, but maybe part of this workforce
Yeah.
that's not reflected in the numbers?
Yeah, it's, I have apartments, and I've got a lot of apartment conversions, to first-time home buyers when rates were lower, and so it depends on where the rates are and this and that, but generally, that is what I've seen, Joanne.
So I think maybe between a vocational school that we have that's putting out more people that would be in this workforce eligible, and what we've seen from a migration into a community, maybe the last 6 years, those numbers would be a little different if we analyze them, that you would have more people in that workforce.
And being able to work from home. The whole world has changed since we started these projects.
Interesting. Yeah.
I think, you've identified the growth industries in central Massachusetts, and I think our plan should sort of try to capture some of that growth.
Absolutely.
And in order to do that, we need locations, and we need a labor force. And so I'm wondering, of these growth industries, how do we match up in those two areas, and then we can sort of promote these kinds of businesses in those areas that make sense.
And what's interesting is that those STEM industries are not at the top of this list right now, right? They're down in the 10% change level, whereas accommodations and administrative and support services are higher up in that growth chart. So, and which professional services was identified in 2018 as well, and seems to match up a little bit better with the residents that we have based on this data.
I will say the STEM industries that we have met with that are coming into the Worcester area, when we meet with the developers and when we meet with the people in the life science industry, they're more concerned with what your second and third grade students are learning right now than they are with if you have water or sewer capacity. They're really interested in if this area is building out a succession of workforce.
Yeah, because Bill, you would say for all of these industries, STEM industries, biotech, bioscience, all that stuff, because you've seen it, some major construction projects going on that have been going on in Worcester. I mean, what do they have in Worcester? They've got WPI right there, which they can feed off of all the engineering students there. I've been to a number of different talks where, you know, it was the whole thought process, I think, was to make it an alternative to Cambridge. You know, like, okay, you can, because you have a lot of stuff going on just right up the road in Marlborough as well. But, okay, and, you know, so what are these facilities or buildings or companies, what are they gonna look like? Are they mostly, they're really not all office, a lot of it's labs, you know, and actually like, you know, scientific, you know, properties. Do we have that? Do we have that ability to attract? I mean, you know, and you know, if we do, yeah, I mean, we're an hour from Worcester, an hour from Boston, an hour from Providence, an hour from Hartford, and we're under 3 hours to New York City. I mean, even though it's not, we can't just walk outside and hop on the highway, but it is a kind of a central location. I mean, it's obvious. We've got IPG Photonics literally right up the road here, you know, and it's just, I mean, how do we attract companies like that? Because, yeah, per a lot of the stats here, yeah, we do have folks that are, you know, are in regards to the workforce that would be able to jump into a lot of those jobs. And then it's not just people that are already here, it's people that are gonna wanna relocate here as well. And you know, what does that look like, you know?
It's an entire college, new graduates every year that could be trickling into this workforce
Exactly.
also.
Right, so,
We need a place for them to go. That's the problem that we have. We don't have an industrial park. You know,
don't?
there's been discussion, there's been talk, but that's, I mean, we want that to happen, we need that. But again, that's not what this discussion is about, but that's kind of why we don't have the IPGs, and
gotcha.
God bless Gentex, right? But, yeah, there's not a lot of room for that.
Yeah, and I guess,
There's room, but it's not developed.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah, I guess another component probably is, you know, if you identify the growth industries, you know, if you open those businesses, people might fill the jobs, but do they live in the community? Is the housing opportunities there for them to live in communities? So that might be a place where, you know, maybe mixed use growth can provide opportunities for more workers in accommodations, or, you know, what have you, jobs that might not allow you to buy a single family home, to live in the community, which gives the added benefit of you live in the community, you buy in the community, in addition to working there. So that's something else to think about.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, certainly.
What I've been seeing more in all parts of the country is not so much just industrial parks, but more innovation districts, where it is more mixed use. You know, a lot of the younger professional population, they don't want to be commuting. They want to be able to live and work and recreate kind of in the same area. So these are like multi-use developments that support all of those.
Makes sense.
Which is what the Stevens Mills project is supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be mixed use, correct?
Right. And I guess, you know, I think industrial parks certainly have their merit in terms of attracting jobs, but if it's only devoted to one company and they leave for some reason,
Right, true.
depending on what the site is and what industry it's in, it might easier or less easy to fill back in. So in terms of thinking about how to mix it with other uses, that might, as Jane said. But yeah, we can certainly try to consider those questions more as we move along.
Okay.
Right. Yes. All right, so then now we're gonna look at the particular focus areas, that's properties that we had outlined in the site-specific economic development plan. So this here is just the general geographic overview of them. So moving from west to east, there's the Fish Road industrial area. There's the courthouse industrial property, the property west of the Dudley courthouse. There's 1 to 3 Fauché Road. There's the Town Beach and 104 West Main Street. The West Main Street corridor was also identified itself. The Gateway was another item. 137 Schofield Avenue, which is the former Stevens Business Complex, and then the Oxford Avenue industrial area. Alright, so this is just a small map of the Fish Road industrial area. where the properties are, so there's 40 Fish Road, and then when Carrie and I were visiting the area, we drove by 7 West Dudley Road, and we thought we might add that as well for consideration. I'm not gonna go over all these items, because we'd be here all day, but it's just for you to look. But 40 Fish Road is a pretty large lot that's zoned for industry. It's at the end of Fish Road, if you go back to the map here, so if it was to really, that road would probably have to be improved for significant development there. It's like a one-way road, and it's surrounded by residences. From what I've heard, it was planned to be a marijuana grow facility, but that fell through. So at the moment, it's just vacant. And that house, there's a single-family home there, may or may not have been damaged by fire. That was my reading from the property card. So that's one of the sites in the Fish Road industrial area. And then the other one was 7 West Dudley Road. Again, another large site. This is situated right next to the Quinnebog,
Quinnebog.
Sorry,
That's all
lots of Q's. Quinnebog bike trail. You can see in the picture on the bottom here, there's a little sign on the grass there. So this is currently an industrial storage facility for a company that moves plant equipment. The building is in relatively rough shape. I think it was 8% good on the assessor's property card, so meaning it's all 92% is depreciated. But yeah, when Carrie and I visited there, we just thought that obviously there's a current tenant there right now, but that this property was ripe for future economic potential, considering it's right next to the bike trail and the Quinnebog River. So it'd be a great opportunity for mixed use or something like that in the future, considering its location. That's also zoned for industry. Anyone have any thoughts about those properties? Should we move on?
Yeah.
All right. And the next 2 properties are the town-owned land west of the courthouse and 1 to 3 Fauché Road. This is right off West Main Street. This is in the south of town. So 1 to 3 Fauché Road is kind of a story of 2 different buildings. One of the buildings is a relatively modern facility that the tenant is IF Engineering Corps, but the street property is this warehouse building or 1-story building on the top here. It's not clear if that's in use. I think it used to be partially occupied, but
What's that, Mark?
It's for sale, I believe.
Yes.
Perfect.
Both
They used
both
to-
properties.
I think they used to make shirts, men's shirts. That was quite a while ago.
Yeah, that little building in the front was some sort of textile, but whoever bought that, built that building in the back and was doing some sort of manufacturing.
We
You
had
guys are saying no one's there now?
so in terms of the back building,
Yeah.
the bottom picture right here,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Where's
according to the
cars parked? There were
property,
cars parked.
yeah, when we visited, it seemed occupied.
Oh.
The property card doesn't note any vacancy. They only built it in 2010, so, I
Right.
mean, it seems like a nice site to vacate so quickly. But it's all the same parcel. So this building in the front here, on the street, is what appears to be vacant and unused. So I guess the challenge there would be so the owner of the property is the tenant, the IF Engineering Corps. Whether I don't know if they're doing anything with that street side building, whether they have any interest in doing anything with it.
Yeah.
They might have just been a add-on to their property acquisition, and they were never interested in it, but.
The planning board approved a industrial park on that property for 3 buildings, 2 of which have been built, so there's a site available or pad for another building.
Would that be on the West Main Street side that there's the pad
Pardon?
ready? Would it be on the West Main Street, like similar across the
No,
street
it's
from the?
not on the street, it's in the back.
Okay,
And I believe it was up for auction, wasn't it, Mark? Do you recall that?
I don't know that it was auction. I'm
just
gonna
for
say
sale.
10 years ago, or 8 or 10 years ago, that was the only building there. That street, Fauché Road, was not there. And that was some sort of like old manufacturing or whatever. Whoever bought that entire parcel kind of rehabbed that building on West Main Street a little bit, never occupied it, and built the building in the back. And that's where their business was. And that just remained vacant, from what I could tell.
It has, I mean, to your point, though, I think several months ago, it might even be a little bit longer, it was listed on LoopNet
Yeah.
as auction, but I had reached out to a couple of commercial brokers, because I had a couple of clients that were interested in the property, but it wasn't like an auction in the sense of I don't believe there was any like foreclosure or anything like that. I think it was just they were trying to, because there was a minimum that they started, obviously, but I don't know whatever, I think that they might have been looking, the current owners of the property that were running their business there were just looking to sell, but maybe there was some conditions or contingencies regarding that they would still be a tenant for a certain period of time, or I'm not really sure the details, but I was never notified, I didn't see that any type of sale transacted, you know, so, but anyway. But it's a nice building, I mean, to your
Yeah.
point, it was only built,
Modern.
yeah,
The Economic Development Committee, we had a get-together we invited all the businesses in Dudley to come. Yep, this was quite a while back. This was right when they moved here. And they transferred their business from, it was northeast Connecticut, up to here. And so I think they had hoped to be able to expand. But that's property there that could be built on, for industry or small industry,
right,
labs.
yeah, it's a nice property.
Yeah, easy access. You go down there, it's a nice cul-de-sac. Yep. So anyways, they came to meet with us. Their name is Fauché.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Explains it.
Yeah, so it might just be a matter of conversation with the property owner to understand what the current situation is.
Yeah.
And whether they would ever have any interest in revitalizing that storefront property or leasing it out as whatever. That could be a candidate for store facade improvement program.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. And then we'll move on to the town land west of the courthouse. That's a sizable lot, right? So almost 60 acres. So in terms of, large industrial plots in Dudley that are available, probably one of the only, if not the most prime candidate for that. The property card listed as single-family residential, but the zoning map suggests it's mostly in the light industry zone, so just to clarify that one. But I suppose I think there's been previous studies on this property in terms of looking at what it could become. Is that right?
We had a feasibility study done on that site last year. I can send you a copy of the report. There are some topographic challenges. It's
To say the
wet
least.
and steep, but they're manageable. And they had a design of several large buildings there that, with some earth-moving activity and permitting challenges, you could actually do a very nice development there. And it was around the order of 300,000 square feet is what their build-out could potentially be. We had a public meeting on that report, and there was opposition to that concept. So it's kind of, stalled at the moment. I think the problem is, what use would we want to promote there? And I think if you can come up with a use that would be acceptable to the town, then I think it could go forward. I think people were thinking more of it as a warehouse park, and that scared people because of the heavy trucks that would be going down West Main Street. But if it could be more of an office park or a light industrial area or research and development, I think it might have a chance to get community acceptance. But,
Wasn't battery storage proposed there?
no.
No, different location.
Yeah.
The ingress and egress was an issue there.
Excuse me?
And the ingress and egress, was it going to be?
It's a state highway, so Mass DOT has to approve the curb cut permit. And the engineers from VHB had a location that they thought would work.
Would work.
There would be one access into the site, and then an internal road network into the various building sites. But some residents felt that it was not a good site for access because of there's a curve as you're going from east to west. You go down a hill and it curves around, and people thought it was kind of a difficult location for access into the property. So that's an issue that would have to be further studied.
I know when we toured with Olivia several months ago, we drove through this neighborhood. You can see I guess you can't see my mouse.
No.
The neighborhood directly to the east, those lots that abut the property on the eastern border, that there might be concern from abutters there. So yeah, that would definitely be one of our goals, to just try to think of a opportunity that might be
A good
palatable to local residents. All right, and then just briefly, here's a previous map of the Gateway area and the West Main Street corridor. So just looking at some of the building uses there. We can pull this back up if we need to, but it's zoning's mainly business, business general, light industry, and residential. Business general is the most common zoning. Uses, most of the uses on the corridor in the Gateway are residential, followed by commercial, and few mixed-use properties, so that's an area for expansion there. And then previous studies found some things such as zoning reforms to permit more compact mixed-use development, facade improvements, storefronts, which I guess Jane and Victoria are already tackling. Some traffic calming measures to encourage pedestrian movement in the Gateway and along West Main Street, and then some investments in landscaping wayfinding, which is largely covers Jane and Victoria's project. And then I guess this is a good opportunity to pose the question. So in our scope, we identified the Gateway and West Main Street as areas for study. A lot of the other properties on the list are, specific sites where we can provide recommendations or envision possibilities. But in terms of the Gateway and West Main Street corridor, is the board looking for us to maybe hone in on specific sites, other sites that we think are opportunities in these areas, or just provide a more corridor or gateway-wide vision for these areas? What are your thoughts there?
Well, please.
I feel like that the work that Victoria and Jane are doing is sort of giving us the general, and so if you could hone in on a particular parcel or two that you have ideas for development, I think that would be supplementary versus redundant.
Right.
Anybody else? Thank you.
All right. And then next we have the Town Beach and 104 West Main Street, which is just a little bit west of the Gateway area. So 104 West Main Street is zoned for business general. It's right on Merino Pond, if we go back to the map here. But right now, it's currently an office/storage site for contractors. So again, another building where there is an existing tenant, right? But I would say it's an area that has great opportunity to be a waterfront restaurant or something like that. It's right along West Main Street where there's a lot of traffic. So obviously it has a use right now, but in terms of asking, is that use the best for this property, or the prospects for this property? So thinking in the future about what it could possibly be. Again, it's right next to the town beach, so possibly an area that could be a commercial attraction for Dudley, taking advantage of the nearby pond.
Yeah, I think we've at numerous times that we've kind of honed in on that, that property as a great area to do just what you had mentioned. Just how, you know, because I think we have the water department that's back there as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that, and how do we, you know, how would we do that? Would we approach the current owner with the town, you know, or be looking to maybe, you know, into an agreement? You know, how do we develop it if it's already owned? You know, try to incentivize the owner to either sell, or, you know, is that how it would work, to the town? Or, because, I mean, I've been in Dudley for going on 15 years, and it has never changed. You know, I'm sure it's been there for a lot longer, you know, so it's, how do we do that? That would be my question. Joanne?
I don't think it's anything you can do. I think it's when the market catches up that its highest and best use is to go that route, then an owner of a property will make a decision, that's the route they want to go. When it's no longer the most productive use that it's sitting in, and it's worth more money to them elsewhere. I mean, that ship sailed for us when Deary Brothers closed. We had a proposal for a small hotel, a restaurant, the whole thing,
Oh.
and the town passed on it. And that was because the town wasn't ready to accept change. That'll happen when it happens. We're not gonna be able to initiate anything quicker.
How long ago was that, Joanne?
Oh, at least 35 to 40 years ago, whenever Deary Brothers closed. The opportunity was there, but there was contamination.
Right.
And the contamination did get addressed, I believe. That cleanup occurred. It was all about abutting Merino Pond. That's back when the ice house was still there.
Nice house.
And
Was
we
the
had the
ice house?
sewers in the street. It had everything going for it, except the mentality of the town was not ready to let go of what its existing use was. Instead, we are now looking at what we look at in its place.
What was the ice house? What was the ice house?
The ice house is the building right now that is storage. It's been the karate place. I don't know what it is right
Oh, yeah.
now. It's something
This
else.
one on the bottom,
I don't
on
think
the
it's
bottom
the
photo?
karate place anymore.
Yeah, that was the ice house.
Okay. Was it a restaurant, or was it an
No,
actual ice house?
It was literally an ice house.
Okay.
Before we had refrigeration.
Like an ice ba-
Yeah,
okay.
You'd go get blocks of ice to
Yeah.
put in here.
Right.
Yeah.
The good old days,
Whatever you
right?
call it. Ice
So
box.
sometimes we have to wait for the market to catch up with what uses are, and then people become acclimated to making sales. Just like the part up by the courthouse, at some point, either technology for developing that land will get better, access will get, something will make a change that'll make it more reasonable to be able to go that route. But right now, you are fighting mentality. It was not so much even the access that was a change, it's that the people who live there aren't ready for the change. I mean, you're doing a great job with this Gateway project. I mean, this is a big deal for change, because that really could be a walking area. As Stevens Linen gets developed, maybe they'll put a restaurant in there somewhere, who knows? And people could walk, like you do in Putnam, you park somewhere, you walk around that area, and it's kind of an interesting time. And then maybe we'll move up to the next segment, but you're in a community, change is slow. And zoning has been slow to adapt for what is out there for alternatives. I mean, you look at the state now is looking at more effective use of big buildings. Like you get on Schofield Ave, people might have a building that's an additional building, and you couldn't do an apartment because we weren't mentally ready to let go that we need more living area. But in Boston and other cities, they're changing their zoning to make more effective use of what's there. So it takes a while. And we need people like you. We are the amateurs. We get an idea. You are the professionals who see whether it can work through financing, through grants, through zoning, through all of those things. And we have been stymied by cost to be able to utilize people like yourselves, towns. We haven't had the money. This is fantastic. We're all elated at what we see going on. And you've done a good, which I think the PR job with it is good, that you get this kind of a response. So I think if we can get this solved, maybe we can move to the next issue.
Maybe once people see it on paper too, it's easier a little bit to digest what opportunities are there. We'll continue to analyze these properties. We're just bringing you what we found to date.
Yeah, the survey
Thank you.
responses are a clear sign that people are interested.
Mhm.
And Carrie, I don't think you and Joe were at some of the earlier meetings where we were talking about tactical urbanism and making small, inexpensive changes.
Yes.
Just to get the buzz going and get people more interested and then just build on that.
Right?
That's a great move for the town, because it's
Early wins.
done enough
Yes.
planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit. Agree.
I could take notes for you.
Yeah, no, we can definitely explore opportunities for that. You know, I think it might be one of those things, it might be playing the long game, right? But if there's ideas or opportunities on paper that we can look back to in the future when the opportunities do come about, that'll definitely be helpful.
Okay.
All right. And then there's the Dudley Town Beach. So it's up in the top right corner here. That's the beach. So about 1.5 acres, owned by the town. It was limited to residents only in 2016, and from what we had heard, it was had been closed recently due to lack of staffing. But again, just thinking about how to market this opportunity for residents. Obviously, it's an attraction for people to come to a town. Not all towns have a town beach where residents can frequent. So I guess trying to think about opportunities to not only market but enhance the property in any way. I don't know if you have any.
That was actually specifically mentioned a couple of times, I think, in the, and it wasn't, it was pretty negative feedback about it, which it's been a while since I've been there. I think my kids have gone over there, but is it really in that state of disrepair?
I don't
I
think
didn't
so.
think so.
I think the 4 of us were floored by it when we
Oh, really?
went there.
Okay. So
Yeah,
is-
it's prime opportunity.
Prime
to
opportunity?
build community. There's a small trail there also,
Mhm.
ample parking. I mean, it would be an investment for the lifeguards, of course, but
Right.
it builds that sense of community. Maybe people come here and then they go to lunch or grab ice cream.
Yeah.
Something to give back to the residents.
Absolutely.
It's like a hidden gem.
Yeah, some of our towns would kill to have that.
Like,
Yeah. I think recalling from our visit, the slope of the beach, I think, can be a challenge sometimes with runoff.
mm,
But other than that, yeah, it was a great site.
There's a playground there too.
Yeah, there's a playground.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to access it through the parking lot of the school,
school, right?
but hence why I think it's like a big thing for the residents of Dudley. It's still very exclusive just for them. And the issue is obviously staffing. How can we staff people to be there for lifeguards and to keep it open? So that's something we're gonna have to look into for sure.
Okay.
Part of that was, it wasn't its day. My kids took swimming lessons there. The Red Cross had swimming lessons there. There was a public beach area. The issue over the years has been the parking, the residents who abut it. It was an issue for them until ultimately they allowed parking at Mason Road School, which enhanced it. But it has been funding in the town. We haven't had the money to fund it, then that causes you not to be able to staff it. That's been the big, and maintain it, because there is some maintenance that goes with the property. Hopefully, as we get more appreciative of what's in our community, maybe we'll focus and give the priority to some of those things that are meaningful, because it's a beautiful little body of water. Obviously, it's watched for bacteria and everything, because it was the town beach, so they kept a look on it, and it's something nice in the town. But we need money. That's our problem. Money is the problem.
So there's still 14 wells. I live on that pond. There's still 14 wells that the town draws from for some water. So that's why they monitor it. And my son was actually a lifeguard there for a couple years. And I believe it was a grant that was given, and that's how they were able to do it. But in the past few years, there has not been any lifeguards there. And it's been okay, but they kind of left it open to anyone. So Webster was charging quite a bit of money to go there for a day pass to their beach. So those who didn't want to pay that came to the free Dudley Beach and left everything that they didn't want to take with them on the beach, and kind of ruined their opportunity. And then the town stepped in and said, Dudley residents only. There's a big sign that's out there, and so that's what it's been. But it becomes a nuisance because now it's, police have to monitor and, okay, where is this car from that's parked at, you know, it just, it could be something really great. And so until we figure it out, I guess it'll just continue to be that. But yeah, in the last few years, there have not been lifeguards.
There's a nice pavilion there too for
Yeah.
families to have, you know.
Very nice.
Outdoor picnics or whatever, if you
Yeah.
don't have a yard, it's nice.
Yeah, there's grill posts that the town has the grills and they just put them on, but, you know, again, people abuse, you know, they don't, there's a trash barrel right there, just throw your trash in the trash barrel, but sometimes it doesn't make it there and it just, yeah, there's restrooms there.
There is a plan to make the beach ADA accessible. We have a CDBG award to do the design of those improvements this year. Andrew in your office is working on that, and then once that design is done, with a cost estimate, we'll apply next year for the funding of the work. So within 2 years, it should be handicapped accessible.
Good.
Oh, that's right, with the mat. Is that the project with the mat that, for stroller and wheelchair access? I think
I'm not exactly sure,
That was
but
discussed years ago.
Yeah.
It's all coming back to me.
You can talk to Andrew, Andrew Lowe, he can give you the information on where the RFP is. We should be going out to bid on that work pretty soon.
Yeah.
Here, so 137 Schofield Avenue, which is the former Stevens Business Complex. So that's right on Route 12 near the Connecticut border. Used to be a business complex with a variety of businesses, machine shops, fitness studio, offices, but was closed to water damage from frozen pipes, I believe in 2022 or maybe 2021. I think part of the issue might have been that the property owner wasn't around. I don't know that, you know, firsthand, but so I've heard.
That's what I told him.
So yeah, I guess it would be a matter of determining, you know, is the structure viable anymore? You know, would it be a complete rebuild? But, you know, it's right on a busy corridor, so certainly an opportunity for something.
We do have you know, to Joanne's point, you know, we do have a new developer who bought that property and has plans to not only renovate the mill, but to add some new structures. It's a mixed-use development with some residential apartments, commercial activity in the building. So he's doing his due diligence at the moment, and we haven't seen anything official yet, but we've met with him. He's very interested in taking on that property, so it would be a great development for the town if he can pull it off.
That will be great.
That's fantastic. Was that the Blackstone Valley Holdings? Oh.
Yes.
Then lastly, the Oxford Avenue industrial area. So we weren't entirely sure what, you know, sites specifically were intended with Oxford, with the term Oxford Avenue industrial area, but we identified some sites that we thought were opportunities. If there are any more, let us know at the end here. So the first one is, I just call it Site 1 because it doesn't have an address, it's vacant. But it's a, you know, about 1/3 of an acre. From what I saw, it used to be a house that was demolished, and now it's just a parking area for construction vehicles and equipment. But it's zoned for light industry. So, you know, a small property. Most of the surrounding parcels have single-family homes on them. So, so probably, you know, nothing more could be built there than, you know, maybe a small restaurant or something like that. Certainly not on an industrial scale. So that's on Oxford Avenue. And then this is the second site we looked at, So this is right on the French River. The interesting part about this one is it's zoned for conservation, so obviously that would mean you couldn't develop anything there. And I guess we were wondering what might be the history behind that. As you can see from the pictures, it's kind of a dumping site for old vehicles and tires and boats at the moment. So, you know, obviously it would need to be rezoned to be developed, and I'm not here to comment on whether it should or shouldn't. It's something for the town to decide. But we thought this was just an interesting kind of property off Oxford Avenue that clearly not much seems to be happening at the moment. It might have been former, I presume it was former industrial land, because it used to be owned by the Dudley Woolen Mills Co. What exactly happened there? Don't know. And then the last site was 10 Oxford Avenue. So this is, if we go back to the map here, this composes the driveway to Shields Packaging, but interestingly enough, the property loops, it touches Oxford Avenue, then disconnects, and then loops back around to have a property that abuts Oxford Avenue. So obviously, you know, Shields Packaging is there and still open, so, you know, they're not going anywhere, so that driveway would still need to be theirs, but these two buildings in the south section of the lot, the bottom of which abuts Oxford Avenue, it's not clear what's happening there. They appear to be vacant. So those could be opportunities. You know, it's relatively near downtown Webster in the Gateway area. So there might be opportunities there, whether Shields Packaging would be interested or require subdividing the properties. And the assessor's card noted that it was the former train depot on the site.
A new fence just went up around there recently, chain link fence.
Yeah.
So someone's actively using that for something, but doesn't mean they wouldn't be open for.
Does anybody on the committee recall what the use was for at either of those first sites?
What the use
The
was?
Oxford Ave sites, yeah.
Car repair, used to be car repair there.
On the Day Street, Oxford Ave site?
Oh, that building, I know they used to do, if you had a collision, you could have your car fixed there, and I don't remember auto sales being part of it there, just
Yeah.
car repair.
I don't know where this site is, I'm not.
So this is
Where
the
the
red
The road
box
by
up
the
here.
cemetery comes out onto Oxford Avenue, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It's on the corner of Day Street and Oxford Ave.
It's at the corner of Sunnyside. It's a
Yes,
lot, I've been trying to
Sunnyside.
figure out for years, what are they doing there? Because you'd see boxes delivered, you saw things to lift them, and I never knew what it was. That's interesting. He does roofing, Damien, but it's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's why that equipment is there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's gotta be a non-conforming lot, right? Must be, yeah.
I
So
thought
it's
somebody
used.
told us at one point that there was a diner there. Anybody remember?
Way before my
That's where
time.
all the foam insulation and stuff is, the
Exactly,
sheets. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's the old building inspector.
No, that's a son or relative.
Okay.
That's not,
Okay.
yeah. See, I'm the dinosaur. I'm a friendly dinosaur, and then there are a few moderate dinosaurs.
Holy mackerel.
Any thoughts on all of that information?
Very detailed.
Very
Thank you very much. I'd have to, you know, maybe we could digest this and just think, because I think that it's, there's so much, right? That if we could just wave a magic wand and have a big room full of money, and that we could just say, yep, we want to do this, that, and the other thing, but I think we just have to, little things at a time, starting with, you know, what we talked about at the beginning with the gateway and the entranceway in, and then, but just this, that we could at least, you know, I mean, is this something that we can, like, is this plan, because a lot of work and time has been put into this, Bill, does this get, you know, get sent anywhere past our committee? Is this something that we show to the, Board of Selectmen? Do we
I
show
think-
to?
Sure, eventually, but I think for now, it's in your hands to figure out where to take it.
Yeah,
And then when it's done, sure, we want to present it to the town fathers and see where we can actually promote some new growth in town.
Joanne? do you-
I think it's like a wish list you've given us, all the things we've looked at. We'd always love to see some of these projects go in, but you've explained it in great terms, that if we can keep feeding out this kind of information, maybe people will get acclimated. Do we have some options in town? And be able to put things that are not effectively used into something that would be beneficial for more of the community. And that's because you guys are professionals. You've done a great job. This is unbelievable. I hope that people pay attention to the presentation you just made. I think it's been fantastic.
Me too, and maybe like you said, maybe we do, as a committee, we talk more about honing in on certain, maybe a property or a couple of properties where we can, show that, hey, listen, maybe we can have a, an informal meeting or something to sit down with other decision makers here in the town and say, listen, we've got some pretty detailed, plans and some suggestions. What are your thoughts about, helping us to get this? Because as a committee here, we can't just do this by ourselves. We can just make suggestions. But having, like Joanne said, the detail to back up our suggestions is gonna be huge. So thank you very much. Anybody else?
But these are all privately owned, spaces, and, for us to think that the town has a budget where they can buy these and develop, I don't see that happening, for a while. I think the opportunity is that, if these were all identified, that we maybe choose either all of them or some of them, and then we approach, the owners and say, hey, this is our insight for this community, and we're in great need of sites like this. And what are your thoughts if we were to bring a developer here and develop it into something? And then we would have a group of developers that, that were in on this as well, and say, hey, is this something that you would consider? Would you think about a restaurant on the shore of Merino Pond where this, I happen to know the owner of that property, and could contact them and say, hey, we have a developer, you have the property, are you interested? And maybe that would work. But I feel, personally, I think that's the only way that we're gonna be able to move on this. Otherwise, I think, not to be pessimistic, but we'll be here 5 years from now with the same sites in mind if we're waiting for the town to have the resource to purchase, even one of them, in my opinion. There's one more down the street that, and maybe you mentioned it, but across from the church, to the right of the greenhouse on West Main Street, not far from here. That's a pretty big open space as well. I don't know how far back it goes, but
It's a vacant lot.
yeah.
Did it used to be a parking lot?
I don't know what was there. Do you recall what was there?
Is it right across from the church?
Yeah.
Used to be the town barn.
Yeah, I
And
think
it
there's a
had
plan.
contamination. We had a $40,000 or $50,000 cleanup on it.
Yeah,
And
so
it's
that's
been-
clean.
Yeah.
I think it's incorporated into another proposed plan coming forward.
Oh, maybe, okay.
Pabola, I think, right? We're talking Pabola.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
Yeah.
got the sense that this was an interim report and not a final report.
not
So,
final.
so what's next?
So we'll be able to take a deeper dive into all of these properties and come up with potential uses, come up with steps moving forward, action items for the committee. I don't think it's uncommon to have healthy conversations with property owners if you have relationships with them.
Good.
2 or 3 of them are town-owned, so focusing on the gateway right now, and
Right.
once this is finalized, we have until June 30th also. So you'll have both plans on the same day. They'll be finalized.
Can I add in that, yes, we're not in the business of finding real estate for the town and helping them do that, but honestly, when you educate people before they ever need that education, they're able to adapt more quickly and not feel like somebody stuffed something down their throat and it's beneficial. So this part of showing you what could be, and because we've had professionals look at zoning and analyze some of the things that come into play, safety and appeal, all of those things, I think by putting this out to the public, lays the groundwork for down the road to be able to do some other projects. Not when it comes about and suddenly that plan is in their lap and then it's like, not in my backyard. I think that's what you've done. I think that is great. And our job is probably just to keep putting it out there. I think we need to send a packet to the planning board of what you gave us, a copy of that plan to the selectmen. Because they're not gonna address it till it's in their lap. We're trying to be proactive on this and look at our community of where we are and what we can be. So I think what you've done is great, and we never would have arrived at any of this information on our own. We'd still be working on this for the next 50 years.
Very true.
So I thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you. Anybody
Very-
else?
Very impressive.
All right, well, thank you.
Extremely
I know it's already past 12 noon, so.
Oh, geez.
I thank
Your stomach.
One
You
more
can,
thing.
that's what it was. Oh, please, Joe?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, building off of Carrie's point, maybe we can plan to meet again. I think our deadline is end of June for this for our site-specific economic development plan. So maybe we can, again, we'll go back and try to envision some opportunities for some of these properties, look at limitations, constraints, stuff like that. And maybe we can come back before you all sometime before,
Maybe May.
yeah, maybe sometime in May or before the June deadline. That way we can, come back to you with,
Okay.
and filter what we've heard from you today and see if it makes sense, and then we can amend that, amend what we have for the final project at the end of June.
Awesome.
And this is not the first recommendation that you've made to a town like ours regarding this sort of property and opportunities. So, how has that, how have those conversations with other towns gone? Is it putting developers with, property owners, or, we'd be definitely interested in hearing, how, those success stories. So, because we obviously can do the same thing.
Good point.
Like implementation.
Sure.
So beyond
Next.
sort of the recommendations, but then what are some opportunities for us to implement these things from other best practices?
Yeah. that was it.
All right, well, thank you again. Really
you.
appreciate it. All right, just next up on the agenda, town planner. Bill, I know you've already updated on a number of the properties and things like that.
I don't have anything new to add.
You don't?
No.
Okay, great. Next item is, thank you, Bill. Open discussion. Anybody have anything else to bring to the committee?
No, only that we should be thanking our town planner who has coordinated all of this to make us look like
Absolutely.
we've done a lot of
I
work.
know. Bill,
But it is him who's
literally.
been in touch.
I've got the easy part, you guys have the hard part, so.
And we need to make sure the townspeople understand the value of having a town planner to do these things, to be able to have good projects that make your town better.
How can we do that?
We can't do it on our own.
Put
Doesn't
that in all
happen.
caps, please.
Put it in all caps? Okay,
Yeah, we talk about it on social media.
okay.
Yeah, people are very interested. They
Yeah.
are
No, but Bill,
interested in what's
really, I
going on.
mean,
No,
I can't thank you enough
Sure.
just because of everything you do, and.
I just
and
have a couple hours a week to put into this,
Well,
so
but
it's not like I
it's-
can do a whole lot, but.
Well, it's an enormous amount.
Sure.
I'm very, very grateful. All right, if there's nothing further, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
All right.
All right.